Coming up on Mountain News at 5:30, Israel is taking aim at southern Gaza. Reaction from Palestinian civilians who say they are running out of places to go. Plus, the Supreme Court appears torn over a proposed bankruptcy settlement for Purdue Pharma.
Plus, the forecast may turn a little bit wintry for some people by midweek. Those details on the way as Mountain News at 5:30 starts now.
Dedicated to southern and eastern Kentucky, this is WYMT Mountain News at 5:30.
Good evening, I'm Steve Hensley. Israel says it is expanding its ground assault against Hamas, leaving little room for safety in Gaza, where more than 130 Israeli hostages are still trapped. This comes as U.S. military deployed to the region is forced to respond to drone attacks. CBS's Chanel Call reports from New York.
This baby was born on the second day of the Israel-Hamas war. Now, 2 months old, he's among the injured in southern Gaza. We left the north and came here to the south, just like they asked, this father says. But this is what we found in the south. Almost no place in Gaza is safe. Israel says it's expanding its ground war against Hamas, telling those who evacuated northern Gaza to now leave parts of the south as well.
IDF forces have almost totally dismantled 2 Hamas brigades in northern Gaza in intense fighting, and we are working to dismantle the Hamas terror machine in the southern Gaza Strip too.
Doctors and paramedics at Al Ali Baptist Hospital are struggling to treat patients, including many children, after Israeli strikes in Gaza City. I don't know who's still alive and who's passed away, this man says. As the war wages on, an escalation in the region involving the U.S. Sunday, an American destroyer responded to 3 separate drone attacks on commercial ships in the Red Sea.
We have every reason to believe that these attacks, while they were launched by the Houthis in Yemen, were fully enabled by Iran.
National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan says Iran supplied the weapons and is ultimately responsible for the attacks. Chanel Call, CBS News.
Israel also accused international institutions of remaining silent about the reported sexual violence of Hamas attackers on October 7th. UN Women has also expressed grave concern, calling for an investigation and prosecution. Almost 1.9 million people in Gaza have been displaced since the beginning of the war. The United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestine Refugees says that is more than 80% of Gaza's total population. The agency also says nearly 1.2 million are sheltering in its facilities across the Gaza Strip, but UN officials say another wave of displacement is taking place as the Israeli Defense Forces step up operations in southern Gaza.
Well, it definitely feels like a Monday across the mountains. We are tracking some cloudy skies, also some cool temperatures and a few showers as well. Up on first alert pinpoint Doppler, zooming into some light to moderate showers in Clay County, also near Hyden for Leslie County, into portions of Perry County as well. So a first alert for hazard, some more light to moderate showers on the way over the next several minutes there as we are watching out for a few more spotty showers into this evening. Here's a live look from Triangle Park in downtown Hazard. That current temperature is 46 degrees. And again, we are cloudy and gloomy this evening. That will continue as well as we go into tonight. Those current temperatures are cool in the middle to lower 40s and a few upper 40s in the Cumberland Valley, up to 48 for Williamsburg, also Somerset, 52 for Harlan, and 51 over in Middlesboro. Temperatures will continue to fall as we go into tonight, and we tumble into the middle and possibly lower 30s in some areas as some cooler, also drier air begins to filter in tonight. But that is short-lived as another weather system is on the way by Tuesday, also Wednesday, maybe a few snowflakes and then possibly some 60s by this weekend. So we stay busy in the weather office. All those details coming up in just a few minutes. Steve?
Cameron, thank you. Supreme Court justices seemed conflicted about a bankruptcy plan for the maker of the OxyContin drug, which played a significant role in fueling the opioid epidemic. The plan settled lawsuits against the maker of the drug, but it also protected the owners of that company by preventing people from suing them because addiction ruined their lives or they lost loved ones. CBS's Skylar Henry has more from the U.S. Supreme Court.
From justice after They were responsible for creating the greatest epidemic that America has ever seen.
Alexis Plius, who lost her 28-year-old son Jeff to an opioid overdose, stood outside the Supreme Court, urging justices to reject a bankruptcy settlement which would protect the makers of OxyContin from facing civil lawsuits for their role in the opioid epidemic.
After I lost my son, I turned my life over to just trying to make sure that other people didn't go through this.
Richard Sackler and his family own Purdue Pharma. They agreed to pay up to $6 billion to settle lawsuits and compensate victims. In exchange, the Sacklers themselves would be protected from more lawsuits while still getting to keep billions more. Lawyers for Purdue Pharma say the money dedicated to fighting the opioid epidemic is on condition of the protections in the plan.
If the trustee succeeds here, the billions of dollars that the plan allocates for opioid abatement and compensation will evaporate. Creditors and victims will be left with nothing, and lives literally will be lost.
One of the questions the justices are weighing is whether the owners of Purdue Pharma can receive the same bankruptcy protections that their company received without having to seek personal bankruptcy as well.
Why should they get the discharge that usually goes to a bankrupt person once they've put all their assets on the table without having put all their assets on the table?
But other justices say there is nothing special about this case.
Bankruptcy courts for 30 years have been approving plans like this.
Despite the opposition protesting outside the court Monday, 95% of victims agreed to the bankruptcy plan. Skyler Henry, CBS News, the Supreme Court.
Justices are expected to issue a ruling early this summer. The Biden administration has announced a new financial strike force to combat the deadly fentanyl drug trade. The strike force will crack down on the illegal financial networks supporting cartels and drug traffickers. This will be done in part by streamlining personnel and resources across the Treasury Department. The announcement comes on the heels of a deal between the U.S. and China on curbing fentanyl production. There is one less person running for President of the United States. Today, North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum announced he has suspended his campaign for president. He did not meet the qualifications for last month's third debate and was also unlikely to qualify for this week's fourth debate in Alabama. In a statement, Burgum says part of the reason why he ran was to, quote, reestablish trust in America's leadership and our institutions of democracy. Former Congressman George Santos lost his job, but he's still finding ways to earn a buck. He now has a profile on Cameo, a celebrity video message platform. It says he will record a personal greeting for a holiday, birthday, roast, or other occasion for $150. Cameo says he has booked quite a few so far, even raising his price due to demand. The gag order in former President Trump's civil trial will remain in place. That's despite efforts by his attorneys to appeal the case to New York State's Supreme Court. It's likely the gag order will remain for at least another week. An appellate judge initially paused the gag order last month, but then a full panel of judges lifted that stay while the full appeal of the gag order remains pending. A former U.S. Olympic swimmer was sentenced last Friday for his role in the January 6 Capitol attack. Cleet Keller had previously pleaded guilty to one felony charge of obstructing an official proceeding. The gold medalist was seen inside the Capitol while wearing a U.S. Olympic team jacket. Court records show he later admitted to trying to delete evidence on his phone. A judge sentenced Keller to 3 years probation and 6 months of home detention. A former U.S. diplomat is charged with spying for Cuba, that from court records in the State Department. He's 73-year-old Manuel Roca, who served as ambassador to Bolivia from 2000 to 2002. Roca was arrested Friday in Miami and arraigned in federal court on Monday. His background also includes diplomatic work in Cuba, the Dominican Republic, Italy, Mexico, and Argentina.
This action exposes one of the highest reaching and longest lasting infiltrations of the U.S. government by a foreign agent. Specifically, the criminal complaint alleges that for over 40 years, Rocha acted as a covert agent of the Cuban government.
Rocha is a naturalized U.S. citizen originally from Colombia. More recently, Rocha worked at a law firm in Florida. Coming up on Mountain News at 5:30, many stores offer credit cards that may sound like a good deal, but are they really? Why experts recommend you should think twice before you sign up.
Plus, we are tracking more rain chances in the short term and highs in the 60s by this weekend. Those details coming up.